Hello, everyone, and welcome back to today's Training Industry Leader Talk, moving beyond outdated metrics and L&D, sponsored by the Regis Company, CGS Immersive Training Industry Courses, and Training Industry Research. So again, I'm Liz Spate, Events Marketing Specialist here at Training Industry, and I'm thrilled to have you with us here today. Again, before we get started, though, I would like to quickly go over a few housekeeping items to help you interact with our speaker and get the most out of today's session. So feel free to use those chat windows as you guys have been doing all day to submit comments and questions. We will have some chat prompts, so keep those open and keep those interactive. And we will be addressing questions at the end of the section, but of course, keep those questions plugged through and we will address those shortly. And once the session ends, a brief survey will appear in your browser. Please take a moment to share your feedback on the session, the feedback, and the event overall. And all of our sessions are being recorded and archived on trainingindustry.com, and you will receive a follow-up email from us with a link to the on-demand session for you to share with your team. And if this is your first event with us, we would love to welcome you. We exist to make connections among learning and development professionals, and we offer tons of resources to support your role in L&D, like live events like today's Leader Talk, as well as through articles on our website, our magazine, conferences, research reports, courses, and our podcasts. We would also love to hear about what you've learned from today's session on social media, so please follow us on your favorite platform so we can continue the conversation. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our final speaker of the day. Ajay Pangarkar is the partner of Central Knowledge and LNRonline.com, leaders for strategic employment performance, strategic learning, learning technology applications, and strategy and cost alignment. His unique approach applying strategic, financial, and professional learning skills allows him to assist various organizations. And with that, Ajay, take it away.
Thank you very much, Liz, and thank you, Training Industry, for inviting me to speak here. I hear some great things about this day today. Just from the chat, I hear some fantastic things. So thank you for having me and the privilege of being able to share my knowledge with you. I hope I don't disappoint because a lot to live up to when you're the last speaker of the day. So, welcome. Thank you for the hearts too. I appreciate it. So let's get started because I got a lot to cover and I'm not terribly conventional when it comes to learning metrics. I come from a business background and um, my background, as you can see, is in training and development, but also I'm a fellow at a CPA here in Canada. And so my background comes from the business side first and then the learning side. So as you can imagine, I'm going to take you into the minds of your business leaders and how they think about L&D today and those metrics that are so key. Just a quick mention, as you noticed, there's a book there. That's my latest book called Learning Metrics. And currently, there's a 25% discount that they're offering me that I will only give to you at the end of the session. So it's get you to stick with me even if you're bored to death. Okay, cool. Okay, so the agenda today, we're going to look is how to align learning to some type of purpose as we move forward. We're going to map learning to actual operations, which is key here, right? Then we're going to look at how do your leaders and how you should look at evaluating learning performance from a financial perspective. And then we're going to look at how you should go about evaluating key existing metrics within your organization and not necessarily ones that you create, the ones that are relevant to your leaders in the organization. So let me ask you a question. What makes these companies successful? I'm going to try to have the chat here open the window so I can see it. I just expanded it way too big on my screen. And does anybody, and it could be more than one answer to this question. So what do you believe makes these organizations successful? I'm going to get you right into the deep end of the pool here. Quality, okay, good question. Marketing, quality, communication, brand positioning, branding, okay, innovation, I like that. Whoa, it's coming in fast and furious here. Consistency. Okay, so let's take a look and see if you are on the right track with some of these answers. From an internal perspective, whoops, going a little too fast here. First of all, they're able to operationalize a clearly defined mission with an organization. And we're going to get to that because it's important that you understand what the mission and the vision of your organization is, and you'll understand exactly where I'm going with this. Those operationalizing aspects of the mission are tied to very clearly defined performance metrics within the organization. Now, these metrics exist in the organization already, and this is something that you need to tie into. As I always say, I mean, I love the Kirkpatrick model, but the level 1 and 2, as we'll see in this session, really apply to the learning side, right? Outside of learning, it doesn't matter to the rest of the organization. What they care about, of course, is level 3 and 4, which is the application of those skills and how it affects the business. And then, of course, these metrics within organizations are clearly communicated to the employees who did know from that point what they need to do, how they need to do it, and when they need to do it. These questions, when it comes to the mission statement and how they operationalize it, are key. Now, let me go through very quickly why it's important for you to begin with the mission of your organization. And I'm taking this 50,000 foot level look first and bring you down slowly into the operational side. Why I start with the mission is because the mission defines how an organization accomplishes what it does to exist. It's its reasons for existence, right? It defines the organization. And the vision is what an organization must do to become what it aspires to become or what it wants to be as it grows. Now, in both these instances, one is the business strategy, right? And when we look at the mission, we're looking at deconstructing that into operational components that actually achieve what the mission is going to become, right? And the vision is basically the corporate strategy, overall encompassing aspirations of the organization. Now, the reason I'm asking you to remind yourself of these things is because when you feel lost in your learning, and you can get into the weeds, and I get it, right? Things are coming at you left, right, and center. People are demanding things from you as far as learning goes. And you have to maintain some sort of relevance and focus in how you apply your resources, both financial and qualitatively in learning, to the right things within the organization. It's in these areas that will define where the learning opportunities exist. And again, allow me to remind you, I'm really at the 50,000 foot level here, okay? We're going to come back down a little in more detail on how to find those learning opportunities. Just to share with you an example. So a few years ago, McDonald's had a mission statement that I found really good. And if I mean, look, I'm not promoting McDonald's in any way, and I don't have any stake in this company, but I love the mission statement because this mission statement that they had was very explicit. It said, be the world's best quick service restaurant experience. Being best means providing outstanding quality, service, cleanliness, and value so that we make every customer and every restaurant smile. Now, if I did not know what to do in my learning space, or I not what to do, wrong choice of words, I apologize. Where would I need to focus? And I'm a little lost with everything coming at me as the CLO of McDonald's, or I just a learning director of McDonald's. I would revisit this and say, okay, where do I need to focus my efforts? Because guess what? This is where your leaders are focusing their efforts. And 90, if not more, 90% of what you do should be focused in those areas. So my challenge to you upon leaving this session today and the whole day today is, do you know your organization's mission statement? You may be nodding to yourself, yes, right now. And good for you. But what I'm asking you is, do you actually know your organization's mission? And I'm stressing the know part because you understand it. What relevance does it bring to you? What in it defines where your leaders are focusing their operational efforts on? Okay. From that, you can focus on those operational issues. We're going to get into it in just a few minutes of what we call the value chain of where the mission connects to the operational elements in the organization and where you can discover those learning opportunities and those key metrics that define success in those areas. And then within those business operational areas, you can then define who you need to serve from the learning perspective. Who knows what? What do they need to know? When do they need to know it? How do they need to know it? What is the relevance and the impact to the organization? And through those key metrics, when those people are successful in applying the elements that you've created within the learning and development space. So in summary, 90 or more percent of your efforts, as I mentioned earlier, must have connection to the mission objectives. Now, let's say you do receive some learning initiatives, proposed to you, or you're proposing some learning initiatives to solve certain issues within a problem. What's key here is that you work with your operational partners to say, are we still in line where the organization, what the organization, why it exists, So going back to the mission and where it wants to be in terms of its future growth, its vision, right? And those two things will clearly define if all of you are traveling in the right direction for what the leadership wants, right? You don't want the leader to come back to you and say, hey, here's a great learning initiative. And they say to you, so what? Big deal. What's this going to do for us? Well, if you don't have that answer, then you are of no value to the organization. But if you can say, here's why the so what, here's why it's relevant to you, you have connected to the needs of the organization. Okay. So my homework to you, and yes, I got homework. Don't you hate me right now? So I got homework for you. I want you to go back to your mission after today and after I speak and reflect on it. Even if you know it, I want you to take a few minutes just to reflect on it, take some time to understand what it really means. And if you don't, talk to the people within the organization that can help you better understand it. What are its focus areas? Will you focus your learning efforts? Those are your starting points on making sure you're delivering your resources to the right areas within the organization, and furthermore, connecting to the correct metrics within the organization. Okay. Now, I did that relatively quickly because I'm trying to focus your efforts, and I'm coming down into this funnel here, a little further down. And it's called How Do We Map the Performance, right? And it goes back to the mission and vision. Your organizations always tie back to that. And we go into something called the value chain. You may have heard of this. It was created by a leading economist and strategist from the Harvard Business School and Harvard Business Review, Michael Porter, back in the 80s. And it's nothing really revolutionary except he was able to define it. Now, what it is that we have the mission as it's defined. Now we have to break that up in pieces. This is what your leaders are doing, okay? And I know I'm doing a little bit of a mini MBA here, but bear with me because you'll see where I'm going with this. They identify what the customer needs, right? Then they design and develop those elements. We call this time to market. And this is the innovation capability of the organization to create something that serves that market. Then, of course, they make it and support it as they go through the process, and this is called a supply chain. And if they do all these things in the middle, the internal part of it within your organization, the needs of the customer are satisfied. And it doesn't matter if you're manufacturing something tangible or it's a service product. There is a value chain within your organization that serves the purpose of understanding how to deliver results to the customer. Now, park this for just a second, okay? I want you to keep this in mind because we're going to come back to it. How do we measure performance through this? Is through something called a strategy map and balanced scorecard. Or really, the balanced scorecard is the terminology created by two gentlemen named Kaplan and Norton, to which, by the way, just shameless plug, my last book, Training Balanced Scorecard, was endorsed by Dr. David Norton, so I'm very proud of that. But it's called a performance management framework. And every organization has some sort of performance framework. We don't own it as learning and development. The organization owns it. And every division within the organization, within that value chain, has what we call a cascaded performance framework that ties into the corporate framework, right? So all these things are interconnected as far as metrics go. So I use the example. Well, before I get into example, let me explain to you what it is. So the strategy map is a summarized version of that performance scorecard. So if you ask any operational leader within your organization, show me the strategy map, they'll show you the strategy map for their department. If you go to the senior level directors like the COO or the CFO or the CEO, you'll see a corporate level strategy map. But this is just a simplified version to show you, to explain what it means. There's we call four perspectives. One is, the top is the financial. Then we have the customer perspective. Then we have what we call internal process perspective. And then we have learning and growth perspective. Now, in this, you may be a little surprised, maybe not. Hopefully you're not. But we have learning there. And this is intentional because, as was stated by Kaplan and Norton in their writings, is that if you don't have a strong root system, meaning what you're feeding the people within your organization, you cannot achieve the expectations, both qualitative and financially, of the organization. Basically, you're not feeding the roots of the tree so the tree will blossom with proper fruits. That's what they're saying. And if you want your tree to blossom, the organization to be successful, you have to feed that root system. And so these are all connected. And what we have here is it's all tied to the mission as we go back, as I mentioned earlier. And we have key performance objectives tied to it. And each of these performance objectives, these are the quantitative ones on top, the financial ones. But every other objectives in here are directly correlated to achieving those financial results. If you want to talk to me more detail about this, I'll be happy to do so, and you can please reach me offline on this one because I can go down the rabbit hole quite in depth in this. But suffice to say that each of these objectives are not mutually exclusive. They are interdependent with each other. So when we talk about achieving a sort of financial result, they say, okay, how do we serve the customer to achieve that financial result? Okay, when we serve the customer, what do we have to do internally to achieve what the customer wants so we can achieve the financial results? And finally, our internal processes has to be well adapted to be able to serve the customer. So what do we need to do to make sure we have the knowledge and the learning within the organization to be able to serve the internal processes that serves the customer, that they'll buy from us, that will give us the financial results? Okay. Each of these things are very important. And if you think your leaders are just focused on the financial performance, I hate to be blunt here, but you're wrong. The financial performance that we call lagging indicators are consequences of doing the right things, of the leading indicators. The leading indicators are what are the qualitative factors, and that's where we lie. That's our expertise. So keep this in mind. Now, where am I going with this? Well, remember I told you to park that value chain? If you haven't made the connection here right now, here's that value chain we visited a few minutes ago. Let me tie in the performance framework into it for you. So as I mentioned, if we're successful financially, we'll have identified the customer needs and we will have met it because the customers will be happy and they'll buy from us, right? So picture Apple, Toyota, Starbucks, whomever you want to, understand, they're meeting the needs of the customer and they're achieving successful financial results. However, to be able to do that, they have to understand what the customer wants. Sorry, let me go back a step. I'm clicking. My mouse is a little sensitive today. I'm not sure why. We have our customer from the performance framework, right? And we have our internal processes to serve the customer to make sure we make it happen. And finally, learning you and your efforts and your skill set ties into all of that. And I always remind my colleagues in learning and development that they're probably one of the most important elements within the organization. Without them, the internal processes, because of the rate of change and what's going on in the markets constantly with companies, and the economic pressures and so forth, learning is key to making sure that change is stable. Does that make sense? Sounds like an oxymoron, right? Change is constant. And when change is constant, learning is constant. And learning is our stability part. It anchors us. It helps us make sure the organization is traveling in the right direction when it needs to make the change or the evolution and what it needs to do. I hope that makes sense, everybody, because it is in that performance framework where you are going to find the key metrics of the organization, all those key metrics. And I don't want you to go inventing your own metrics. First of all, I congratulate you if you do that. However, you're wasting a lot of time and resources doing that. If you want to measure learning internally and how well it's done, good for you, but don't share that outside of learning. What I want you to do is go find those operational performance metrics in those performance framework areas and tie yourself to that to make sure that you can have an impact. So if they say they have to increase customer satisfaction by a certain percentage, what does that mean to learning? How is learning implicated by a 5% increase in customer satisfaction? And remember, you're not the only factor in improving that customer satisfaction metric, for example, right? There are processes also involved that can help improve it. But on the learning side, you have to say, well, what contribution can we make to ensuring those people who are delivering customer satisfaction are going to improve their performance and making the customer more satisfied? And then that's where you pull out of your toolbox the needs assessments and all this wonderful stuff, the skills assessments, to understand what you need to do to make sure the employees are able to achieve those results and move that needle. I hope that makes sense, everybody. I think the chat sort of stalls. So either I've oh, I got some hearts. Okay, yay, good. I'm happy. It's lonely on this side, everybody. So I'm really happy that it's happening. Okay. Now, in the time we have, I don't necessarily apologize, but in the time we have together, I'm trying to introduce you and open your mind to that. And if you are struggling, I do encourage you to reach out to me on LinkedIn and happy to chat with you. All my knowledge is free. So, feel free to ask me questions either here or offline. I'll be happy to do so and help you on that. But my knowledge that I have is not proprietary. I'm just going to share that with you right now. My knowledge is from the business world, from my business education, the same education your business leaders get. So it's out there and some of the best business books out there. So if you get your hands on it, I encourage you to do so. Alicia, thank you for that comment. I appreciate it. But it is important that when we'll talk about this in just a few minutes, that you do tie into the performance framework because it is those metrics and that performance framework for each of the departments that is relevant to those operational leaders and managers. Remember, they're under pressure to achieve those metrics, and you can become their operational partner to do so. And I've done it with companies, with their departments. And I've made that happen to make them partners with learning, not an afterthought, right? And when you think about, and I'll just digress here just a little bit, if you permit me. If you think about, I like to use the Starbucks example because I go to Starbucks. Remember what it takes to make that coffee that you order from a customized menu, and maybe you even further customize it. And every single time you get the coffee you want, right? At the end, 3 minutes later, think about there's no machines back there. I mean, there are machines, of course, the espresso machines and stuff like that, but there are people operating those machines to make sure you get what you want. Think about what goes into putting the knowledge into those people to make sure you're satisfied. That's the value chain, that's performance metrics, and that's learning tying into as an operational partner internally into Starbucks to making that happen consistently anywhere in the world. Okay. That's how powerful learning is within an organization when done well. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a very quick question, and I want to, how do your leaders, maybe you know this, maybe you don't, evaluate your initiatives or any initiatives? But specifically, since we're talking about learning here, how do they evaluate those initiatives? Do they go back to you and say, okay, what are some learning methods, and are we measuring that? Butts and seats and that kind of stuff. We did post and pre and post assessments and that kind of stuff. Do they look at infrastructure needs within the organization, like learning infrastructure and operational infrastructure that ties into that? Do they look at the financial or business needs, or do they look at something else that to evaluate your efforts? Does anybody want to share their thoughts on that? They can ask, can they do the job better now? Yeah, of course. And of course, one thing about doing a better job now is, of course, it's iterative, right? They have to keep repeating the skill set, and of course, you're going to have to keep follow up and measures on that. Customer satisfaction scores, especially if you're looking at customer satisfaction, if you're targeting that, of course. And a lot, okay, Gerard, a lot are tied to our business needs, of course. Okay, so let's get into it here. So let me take you into the heads of the business leaders. First, I'm going to show you, when you look at any type of learning strategy or investments within an organization, from the learning elements, we understand what goes on here, right? We look at the needs identification and learning retention. That's level 1, 2 stuff, right? That's what we do really well. And, we build cases around that. And that's important. And I'm not taking that away from L&D. And it sometimes sounds like I am, but I'm not. I think that's really relevant. But from the business leader's perspective, it's more of a so what aspect. And they're going to look at it from an infrastructure capacity, right? First of all, this is considered a capital investment for them. It doesn't matter what kind of learning. Some of it is expense, right? Because it's necessary to get people onboarded and skilled up. But then there's other stuff where they have new projects and new products to launch. And now that becomes part of their capital investment. And they need tools around that. You may need an additional LMS or e-learning system or something that goes into play. And there's, of course, the operational expenses to maintain those capital investments over time, right? And of course, we talked about, I think somebody mentioned earlier, the business objectives and operational activities within it. So we're talking both of these things, we're talking in both these areas, level 3 and 4. And going back to the business objectives and operational activities, we're talking about those leading indicators in your performance framework again, right? Those are going to lead to financial success for the organization. So there's a lot of tools that your leaders and operational leaders use, and you don't need to know anything this by expertise, but you need to be literate. And when they come to you with this stuff, you need to understand where they're coming from. I'm just going to share a couple of things with you, okay? Not everything, but some of the more common ones that come up. So when they're looking at return on learning investments, and I hate the word return on investment for learning because learning is a cost center. And don't take that four-letter word as a bad thing. It's not meant to be a bad thing. Take it from a CPA. When we look at the different, what we call responsibility centers within an organization as a business person, right? Your leaders are trained this way. They're brainwashed in their education this way. They look at profit centers. Performance is evaluated a certain way with profit centers. There's cost centers. Performance is evaluated a certain way with cost centers. And then there's investment centers. Performance is evaluated a certain way with investment centers. So when they say you're a cost center, it's not a bad thing. Actually, you should be proud of it because they're evaluating you based on certain ways in a cost center, just like the accounting department, just like the HR department, just like marketing. They're all cost centers. So you're nothing special. You're a cost center too. Okay, and it's not a bad thing. The first thing they look at is what called cost volume profit. We're going to look at an example here. And this basically what we call in basic layman's or layperson's term is called a break-even analysis. At what point we cover our fixed costs to make a profit? Okay, that's basically it. The second one, which I'm not going to get into, which is quite interesting and it's quite common, is called a net present value. And basically, it's on major projects. So if your company is launching a new product, for example, or building a new factory or facility, or something to that effect, that's a major investment that will last multiple years, they're looking at this net present value calculation. And guess where you're embedded? You're embedded as somebody out, what we call cash outflows, into making sure that project happens effectively. So make sure you're prepared for the discussions, but it's a little more involved, but simply to describe it very simply, if you remember when your grandparents said to you, a dollar in my day is not a dollar today, that's net present value, except that's present value. So present value is like a dollar 5 years ago is not what it's worth today. But the way business leaders look at it and say, okay, what is a dollar worth 5 years from now? And bring it back to today's value. Okay. The net part is they subtract all the cash that goes out, right? So whatever the cash they get in from the project, subtracting whatever the cash goes out, gives us their net amount, and they discount it to today's value. So if a product is going to be around for 10 years, think of a car company launching a new car. If the life cycle of the car is 10 years, they're going to look at that car uh, um, profitability over 10 years and bring it back to today. Now, why is this relevant for you? Because guess what? Your learning efforts have to be in there. Your learning efforts are a cost, just like the marketing element of this project is a cost, just like the hiring of people is a cost. And they have to get all these cash outflows to determine what it's going to cost. And of course, the key thing here in net present value is they want to increase profitability. Okay. So they're going to come to you like everything else that goes out as far as cash goes. Can you make it cheaper? Can you make it less expensive? And you have to say, well, it depends on the value you want us to deliver, right? You have to push back. And they understand that. Now, I went a little too far on that one, but I just wanted to make sure you're not afraid or frightened or apprehensive when somebody says to you, we're going to do a net present value calculation. Here, the trick here, by the way, for any of these calculations, I don't want you to become experts, but I want you to become friends with the people like me in your finance and accounting department that understand this stuff and can work with you. But at least you'll be literate and understand what they're talking about. Okay, I'm going to take you through the break-even analysis or the cost volume profit. This is what we call this is a very simplified version of what we call a behavioral income statement. You see income statements from companies. I'm sure you see income statements from your companies where it has, sales or revenue minus cost of goods sold minus expenses gives you net operating profit. Here it's taken differently. It's what we call behavioral, and we separate the costs into variable and fixed cost. And basically, the variable costs are based on the sales of the product, right? If we put more dooflickies in the product and we sell more product, then our variable cost goes up because Think of a car. The more cars you make, the more raw materials you have to put into it. Fixed costs, on the other hand, are things like the factory. It's the desks and the e-learning system that you decide to buy. All these things, whether you use it or not, are a cost to your organization. And the more you use it, whether you use it or not, is a cost. But the more you use it, the more on a per unit basis it comes down in price on a per unit basis. The thing here, what I want you to think about is that every major or any type of learning initiative that you do is considered an addition to the fixed cost in the organization. And remember what I said what break even is. We have to cover the fixed costs, and anything above that is our profit. That's how your business leaders think. So two things we can do is either, well, not you can do, but the organization can do. If you decide to, hey, we want to invest more in e-learning or AI for e-learning or something to that effect that is a significant cost for them, two things they're going to have to do is either increase revenue, meaning make more sales, or reduce the variable costs. So something has to give here, right? So this is where their mindset is going. So the question that you need to be prepared to ask is, what extent will your learning efforts, when you're proposing these investments or these costs to learning, will contribute to the production and profitability organization? Okay. Here's a quick example. And I'm going to share a little present for you that you can take away for free. No strings attached. I don't like strings attached when there's no sales pitch or anything like that. Liz is going to drop something into the chat as I finish this. Well, she did already. Perfect. It's a little early, but that's cool. I sharing a spreadsheet with you of this calculation. So let's say a company sells 4,000 units of a software, right? And it sells it for $200 a unit. Each unit cost to make is $120, and their current fixed costs are $200,000, right? Because it's a new software, you come up and the CEO says, hey, let's create for the sales team, a new training program that can help them sell more of these products, right? And you say, okay, we can do that. And but they're salespeople, so we don't want them into a classroom. We don't want them sitting at their desks. We want them to be out and selling, but we want them to learn these new skills. And he said, perfect. I got the thing. We'll create this really on-demand e-learning tool that will cost you $60,000 to do. Total cost involved with all the software, the design, whatever we need to do to build this course. And working with them, you decide, well, you could increase sales by 700 units, right? The question is, should the company spend the $60,000 you propose? Well, let's do a quick calculation. I think you know where it's going. So there's two columns, right? One is in the spreadsheet, you'll see this. You can play with those numbers because I've automated it. So you have one with no e-learning and one with the proposed 700 more units sold. Okay, well, Shelly, we'll take a look at that. No worries. I'll make sure you guys get the copy of that, okay? If you're having trouble getting the spreadsheet. I promise you will all get that spreadsheet if you want it. So no e-learning, of course, are making $800,000 sales. With the e-learning course, additional 700 units, they'll make $140,000 more in sales, right? Variable cost, of course, goes up because we're selling 700 more units. So our variable cost goes up. So our contribution margin is not another term to say gross profit, okay, before all the expense or the fixed costs, is $56,000. Well, I think you know where this is going, right? What was the cost of our fixed costs? Remember, our fixed costs are added onto the existing fixed costs. So will the company still do it? If you were the decision maker, would you go with the e-learning course based on this result? No, exactly. Thank you, Stephen. Here's the thing. That's not actually a loss. That just means that if they do nothing, they can maintain the same profitability. So they can just let their salespeople go willy-nilly and try to sell the product without the e-learning. So what are the questions we need to ask here, right? What are the types of questions we need to ask if we're going to sell this? I don't know if anybody wants to take a chance here and go out on the edge for me. I'm getting people to think, or the business rationale. Okay. Can you be a little more explicit, Jason? Additional training provide, okay, at a later date. What does it cost if we don't do the training? Soft cost, time wastages. So the question is here, okay, remember what I said to you, right? The decision maker has decided now, okay, we either have to increase revenue or reduce variable costs for us to be able to absorb fixed costs, that you're the $60,000. The question back would be is like, okay, what is the break-even point, right? How can we reduce our fixed costs from 60,000? I think the break-even I put is around 55,000. If we bring down the break-even cost to 55,000 and it comes to zero, will this still do it, right? Number one, we can try to bring down our e-learning costs, maybe take out some things that are not absolutely necessary, right? Or we can ask them, look, how long is this new software going to last? Is it like a 3-year cycle? Is it a 5-year cycle? Well, guess what? You might lose $4,000 this year, but as the years go on and the people keep using the courses, what does the projections of the sales for that software in the future look like, right? What I'm trying to say here is you have to think like them. Once they say to you, oh, it's losing $4,000, we're not going to do it, that should not be the end of the conversation. You should need to go back and probe to them and say, well, okay, we understand. Maybe we need to reduce the costs. Maybe we need to do it differently. Maybe we need to do something different to make sure that we can bring our costs down, or maybe your 700 units is too conservative. Maybe you're going to make more sales than 700, right? Whatever we do here, they do something what's called a sensitivity analysis. It's a risk assessment, basically. And again, I don't need you to know this, is what all accountants and financial people learn. A sensitivity analysis, they play with different numbers. Sales go up, sales go down, what happens here, what happens there. I need you to get into that mindset and make sure that you're helping your financial metrics and helping them make the proper decision. It's not that they don't see learning as no value. They want to make sure that they're not going to lose anything based on adding more fixed cost into the equation, right? So as Mike says, what about year 2 and beyond and so forth? And those are the questions and the conversations you need to have. And I don't mean this in any type of slight, but don't let the conversation end here. The conversation can continue and they want it to continue, but you need to initiate that to make sure you're involved in that conversation. Just don't take no for an answer. Stay, okay, let's find out what's going on here. That's what I need you to do. Okay. Because the numbers is always the first place they're going to go to. Okay. Now, question, what do leaders expect? Well, they expect, as we saw in the last example, some type of business impact, but the business impact has to be related to making sure that we're achieving not just the qualitative results, but the financial results that they expect. By the way, in that example, we may not be the only factor in making sure we're getting to 700 units. There might be other factors and processes that are impeding them losing that money, right? So those are other questions you have to bring up. So I love acronyms. I really love acronyms because my memory is like a budgie bird. But I'm short on remembering things. Okay. So these acronyms help me remember things and how to get, and make sure I'm answering the right questions. To get learning acceptance, make sure you answer these type of questions. Resistance, right? What will this cost us? That's the question they're asking you, right? You want to overcome that resistance. You want to overcome the apathy, right? So if you want to get your learning on the radar, what will this do for us? And here's the issue. This is a big one, by the way, the apathy. The apathy is because we've let them down. When I say we, the collective we in learning, many times before about showing impact on the organization, they don't hate us. They have a lot of apathy and they're apathetic to us, right? They're just indifferent. And if you really want to prove something, prove what this will do for you. So go back to those key metrics, both financially and qualitatively. Whoops. The disruptions. Why now? So remember that your organization does not want to interrupt any type of productivity flow, but your leaders understand things need to be interrupted. So the why now question is this a good time to do it? I used to do work with Apple. And I remember when all the other companies, when there was an economic decline or there's a downturn in the market and all their competitors were starting to cut back on training and learning, I remember in one instance, they were putting more money into learning And the question I asked them, just out of curiosity, because I knew the reason, but out of curiosity, why are you putting more money when all your competitors are cutting back during the downturn here? And they say, we want to be ready when the market turns, and we want to be the first one out the door when it goes. They understood that this would be a good time to start investing more in learning within the organization to prepare the organization to move forward when the cycle turns back productive, and they'll be ahead of the curve to their competitors. What differences make? This is level 3. What difference will it make to the organization? So go back and tie into those metrics that they have. These operational managers are under pressure to achieve certain levels of performance. If you can partner with them and help them move that needle, there's your argument of what difference it will make. And of course, level 4, what will it do for a business? So if we achieve these metrics, what is the cascading impact upward into the organization? All the way to the mission, right? So what will it do for the organization? Now, I'm going to spend some time here just on engagement metrics. So how do you get people engaged? And I talk about this in the book. Again, it's more acronyms, but it helps me keep focus. So when you're looking for engagement or people engagement and understanding that they're learning within the process, and think of it from an employee's perspective, right? You want to be timely, right? Timely means, can they access your learning anytime, anywhere, when they require it? We talk about all the technology that's available to learning, but I always warn learning people that this is a double-edged sword. While you get all that technology, what technology means for the business leaders is efficiency and effectiveness. So if you're going to ask for more technology to make your learning better, we'll make it better overall. Make sure that people are able to access it when they need it, where they need it, how they need it. Make it relevant, right? Make sure it's tied to those job and performance metrics, even down to the lowest level. If you can get to a customer satisfaction metrics for a customer service person, for example, or sales metrics for a salesperson, and you can help them improve their sales performance, I'm just using common examples. Try to do that because that will get them to buy into your learning. Make sure it's adaptive, right? To changing needs in organizations. Nothing remains static within an organization anymore. And that's why learning is so relevant, that you're able to make that happen. Make sure it's integrated. We talked about anytime, anywhere, but make it part of their work environment. Not that they have to stop and go to a course for 5 hours or an hour and then come back to their work. I had a client where they made sure that they had, the iPads or whatever, their tablets on hand when they needed the expertise. They had the help desk there. They had a quick tutorial there for people to access to be able to address that need in an immediate context. People can't remember everything all the time, so you need to make sure they can access it anywhere at any time. Efficient, right? Don't drone on with learning. We have a bad habit. I'm saying we, the collectively, not all of you. I'm sure all of you, if you're here, you're progressive and you're thinking. But we've been in those courses where people talk about the background of the company and the history, how we got here, and blah blah blah. Who cares? We want to be quick. We want to be targeted. We want to be impactful, right? Resourceful. Use what you have before you go asking them for the new shiny toy in learning, whether it be technology or otherwise. Look at what you've already asked them and see how you can leverage that. What exists in an organization that you can leverage and use yourself, right? And finally, make sure it's seamless, right? You don't want to be, if you can integrate into the workflow somehow, even better. Now, well, Stephen got a, I don't know if I don't know, Liz, if you can read through that for me. Pick out. Thank you, Stephen, for the comment. I'm not sure I'll have time to read through it right now, but I will try to get back to it. If you haven't recognized the acronym here, trainers. I want you to be more effective trainers. Okay? Think about the next time you're designing and developing an e-learning initiative, or any learning initiative, I shouldn't just say e-learning, but any learning initiative. So really, rather than look at return on investment, as I mentioned earlier, and your metrics, and making sure that you show this direct correlation, because learning does not have a direct correlation. And by the way, don't insult your business leaders by trying to convince them that you do. Okay? You're going to do two things that are going to hurt you. One is you're going to undermine your credibility with them because they realize that learning does not have a direct correlation to the outcomes 100%. And if you do, you've just painted yourself in a corner to be accountable for everything that goes wrong. Okay. You can't take the good without the bad. So understand there's what business leaders look at in any cost center and their metrics is that you're a cost versus a benefit, right? They put money into it. What benefits are you going to deliver? And that is going to be through the performance metrics, both understanding the financial requirements and both and with the qualitative metrics that your operational leaders are under pressure to achieve. So, timeless, close to it. So let's do a quick review. And I'll try to read through these comments as we go through. One, align with strategy. So I gave you some homework. Go back to your mission, understand and audit yourself, audit your learning initiatives, and ask yourself if I can figure out a way how this ties into the ultimate objective of what the organization wants to do. For example, if they're trying to satisfy customers better, right? Well, okay, how does that tie into the overall mission of the organization? Did I create a learning initiative that helps do that, right? So audit what you're doing already. And if you have proposed initiatives coming up, try to make that connection as you move up the food chain within the organization, eventually to the mission of the organization. So you have that homework to do. Map your learning efforts to business outcomes. Within that mission, identify the operational areas that you'll have most impact. And guess what? There are going to be operational areas that are going to be more of a focus for your operational leaders than other areas, right? If you want to make a true impact and make a difference in the organization, look at those areas that those operational leaders want to improve over time. Retrieve the existing performance expectations, right? So we're going to look at what are the existing performance metrics, what are the relationships among those performance metrics, because when you affect one performance metrics in one area, you're automatically impacting the performance metric positively or negatively in another area. So make sure you see the interdependence within the organization. The organization works as a system. It doesn't work in its individual parts. And of course, leverage your existing metrics and engage the people, right? Make sure you're tying into what the people want within the organization and make it relevant for them, because if you get them on your side, it's not the business leaders you want on your side. I mean, yes, you do. But if you get the staff and the people within the organization loving what you're offering them and delivering them value, that's a grassroots movement. They're going to say, we want more. And that's going to convince the leaders to do more of what you do. Okay.
Beautiful. We are out of time, my friend.
Thank
So I
you.
know you had some couple of shout outs you wanted to give, so I'll give you that kind of floor, but we do have to unfortunately wrap up today's
Sure.
event.
Well, I'm done. So I just left some resources up here, and there's a lot of, sorry, Liz, I'll just very quickly, there's a lot of great articles as Liz has just posted. I have written a lot and proud to say won a lot of awards for training industry on my articles, and they're free. So take advantage of it. And the spreadsheet, I hope you guys have access to that. I'm going to go back through the chat and take a look if I can answer any questions.
Yes, yes, and totally reach out on LinkedIn. But regardless, we will be sending your questions to Ajay. So we'll make sure that you get that to address them. But thank you so much. This was a great way to close off today's event. I hope everyone else enjoyed. Is there anything else you would like to say though before we wrap it up?
Well, like I said, thank you everybody for sharing your time with me. I know it's valuable. I want to make sure you leave with something. And in the 45 minutes that Tice has been very kind to give to me, I mean, I try to deliver as much as I can. I hope I've not overwhelmed you, and I'm there to support you. So whether it's you send me the questions or ask me the questions or get my resources or read through my articles or take advantage of this promotional offer that they've given me personally to buy my book, do so. But make something happen. Make a small difference. As my dad used to say, you don't eat an elephant in one sitting, you take one bite at a time. Take one bite right now and make a difference in what you do. So today was not a waste for you.
Beautiful, beautifully said. Thank you so, so much. Austin, you're cracking me up. But for everyone else, though, thank you again for all of our dynamic speakers and sponsors, the Regis Company, CGS Immersive, Training Industry Courses, and Training Industry Research. Thank you so much. Again, all of our sessions are pre-qualified for a credit hour by SHRM, HRCI, ISPI, and CPTM. So send an email to me or anybody on the TI team, and we will happily send you those codes. Additionally, I would love to meet you all here in Raleigh, North Carolina for our 2026 Training Industry Conference and Expo. TICE is where learning leaders like you forge to gather new professional connections, you learn from each other, and address your most pressing learning challenges. So right now we do have early bird all the way through the end of March. So check out that deal. Additionally, if you loved that third session, or if you didn't make it to our third session, we did share a little bit about our course. So the ability to optimize learning analytics process is becoming an increasingly in-demand skill for learning professionals, but it doesn't have to be intimidating. So you can learn to integrate, define, and interpret learning analytics with the Learning Analytics Certificate. Lastly, the one reminder that I have is the survey will pop open in your browser upon exiting, and we would greatly welcome your feedback. Again, thank you all for joining us again. I am Liz, and I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and I will see you all very soon. Bye, everybody.